Your voice, it thunders. The oaks start twisting. The forest sounds with cedars breaking. The waters see you and start their writhing. From the depths a song is rising. Now it's rising from the ground. Holy, 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 holy Lord. The earth is yours and singing. Holy, 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 holy Lord. The earth is yours. The earth is yours. Your voice, it thunders. The ground is shaking. The mighty mountains now are trembling. Creation sees you and starts composing. The fields and trees, they start rejoicing. Now it's rising from the ground. Oh, now it's rising from the ground. Hear us crying out. Hear us crying out. Holy, 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 holy Lord. The earth is yours and singing. Holy, 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 holy Lord. The earth is yours and singing. Holy, 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 holy Lord. The earth is yours. The earth is yours.
That song is called "The Earth Is Yours" by Gungor. And I know I was here. You missed it while Liz was practicing. She was worried about hitting that note. You hit it, and it was awesome. Well done. I love that song. And it opens up our new series here for this month of April. Spring is here. You can see the decor. Heather went all out on the decor in the front, so you got fireflies inside your little baskets there and butterflies, and so it looks beautiful. We'll continue to add as spring unfolds. It'll unfold in here, but a great opening song for this month. A few announcements today, and welcome to the Grove. If I haven't said that yet, I know I didn't, but now I did. So welcome to the Grove. Today, after the service, or a couple hours after the service, because we're not going to go that long. Matt is speaking, but we won't go till 2. But the 56ers, which are 5th and 6th graders, will be here going to Willy Wonka. If you haven't seen it, today's your last chance. At 2:30 at the high school, so the 56ers are meeting at 2 o'clock there to get their tickets, to find some seats, but they're going to enjoy that. It's been an amazing show. We have a few people in the cast that are a part of the Grove and behind the scenes and out in front, and so it's an exciting time to see it. I've seen it a couple times. I'm going to see it again today. It's a great show. Yesterday we provided taco dinner for them, so thank you to all of those of you that helped sponsor that, provide food, money, and we're actually there with the setup and tear down yesterday. That went well. And today they're going to be here afterwards. They're going to have their cast party here, so this room is going to kind of get transformed for them to a cast party afterwards so they can celebrate together. Next Saturday is our church workday. So again, a part of spring, one of the things we like to do is get this place looking nice. And the space that we share, we like to keep it beautiful. And so we're inviting you to come out next Saturday. We'll start at 9 o'clock, and we'll work throughout the morning and afternoon. And so if you have 1 hour, 2 hours, or a few hours to come and be a part of that, the more people, the better, because then we can work together on some projects. If Saturdays are bad for you and you're like, hey, I can come this week or next week, I have a few hours, we have definitely things that can be done by one person and indoors and outdoors. The group from Canada is here. I thought they'd be in the service today, but they wanted to get on the trail early. But every year, a group from Canada, it's been a few years since they've been here, but they're here now. They came in late last night. They're leaving now to go on the AT for 4 days, but they're going to be a part of that church work day. That's one of the things that they like to do to give back to us. So they volunteer that entire day. So it'll be a chance to hang out with some really cool people and do some projects together. That's Saturday, April 9th, church work day. The next Sunday after that, which is the 17th, is Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. We are celebrating that day, and so we're inviting you and your families and your friends to fill these chairs, to come out that Sunday morning. And afterwards, we're going to have a little bit of a celebration. We'll have kind of a cookout out back and have some fun with the kids, some games, inflatables, things like that for the kids. And so we're going to make a big deal on that Sunday because it's a big part of our story as a faith community is that Easter morning. And so inviting you to come be a part of that. So like I said, we're in a new series in April, spiritual practices that we're looking at this month. One is earth care or creation care, and Matt's going to share a little bit about that in a moment. The other is celebration, and so those kind of things are going to be woven into this month. We'll sandwich it with the front and back end. Will be a little bit about creation care and earth care, and in the middle, Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, we're going to celebrate together those stories. But that's going to lead us to our table talk question. So I'm going to give you a chance to say hello to those around you and just kind of talk for a moment with those that you're sitting with. But the question for the first week is a favorite place in nature that you go to or you've been to, like a beautiful place, location that you've been to, or something about Earth itself that you love, a place that you love. The chalkboard in the back, there's two things on there for this month. One is tell us some things that you love about Earth, and the other is tell us some things you love to celebrate. And so I want you guys to add to that throughout this month on the chalkboard. Go ahead, grab a piece of chalk and write some things on there that you love. But today's question is a favorite place that you like to go to in nature. For me, I love cold mornings and cold evenings and hot in the day. And so northern Michigan, Canada, I love being in those places. I love winter, if you didn't know that about me. But I love it when it's cold, and I just love to wake up with that chilly morning and then that chilly evening as we close. And so I thought of northern Michigan and Canada, two places I love to go. And when I was right out of high school, I went and visited a place called Algonquin Park up in northern Ontario. And the place is amazing. I've been there about 3 or 4 more times since we've been married. We've gone up to Canada and visited this place. It was just beautiful. Lakes, woods, moose, bears, everything was up there, and it was just, is the plural of moose, meese? What's mooses? The mooses were there. But it was a beautiful place. So it was my favorite place. If I can go anywhere, northern Michigan, Algonquin Park up in Canada, those are some beautiful places that I love. But what about you? What are some beautiful places in nature that you love, you've been to, would love to be there right now instead of listening to me? But talk about that with those around you, and then we'll come back together. That what you just described was the smell I was hoping for. It was not. So it's not. I was really disappointed that they called it True North. They should have called it True Crap. Because that's what it was. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to come back together. I hope you heard some beautiful places that the people around you love to be or love to go to and have experienced. I was telling Nicole that there's this place when we go to Guatemala that it's this beautiful lake, Lake Atalan, and in the scenery in the background are just this kind of display of volcanoes. And I don't know that I've ever seen anything that I think is more beautiful than that. It takes your breath away, and I can't decide if it's because we've worked really hard for like a lot of days and we're finally get to take a rest when we get to the lake, or if it's just that beautiful. I think it's just that beautiful. So that was my pick. But like Jeff said, we are going to be talking about the earth in different moments of this month, and you see the display kind of in the back at the board kind of changed. Earth Day does fall in the month of April, and we do believe that it's important for us to just recognize the earth that God has given us and how remarkable it is, and it's worth celebrating. Not only do we live in a super incredibly beautiful place, it's not hard to go find beauty here, just drive down the road and look out your window, but it's important for us to just acknowledge that it's such a gift for us to celebrate. And so there are ways for us to think about the earth and creation and what God has given us, and so we're going to be doing that throughout this month. And in that, with that in mind, I'm going to be reading us a call to worship, and we're going to move into a time where Liz is going to lead us into some songs. And so this is going to come up on the screen. Cannon's going to help me out with this. And I'm going to be reading the words that are in connection to one. And then when it says many, it's going to come up there. I think it is, maybe. It will. Oh, it will. Okay. Thanks, Cannon. When it says many, we're going to read that together. So with the theme of thinking about the earth and just the beauty and the things that we see around us, this will be the theme of our call to worship today. In the name of the Creator, the fountain of life, in the name of Christ, the pulse of life, in the name of the Spirit, the breath of life, amen. Holy, 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 earth is filled with God's presence. Christ, we come into your presence to worship in this sanctuary called earth, a planet pulsating with your presence, a presence quivering in the forests, a presence vibrating in the land, a presence pulsating in the wilderness, a presence shimmering in the rivers. God, reveal yourself to us in this place and show us your face in all of creation. Thank you for joining with that call to worship. And Liz is going to lead us here. And if you are so inclined, if you'd like to stand and to join her to sing along and use this time as we worship to think of what we're here gathered to do together. So join us now.
More than all we ask, than all we seek, all our hopes and shame, stronger than the grave. You are immeasurably more. I can't help but sing, can't help but praise. My heart cannot contain. You are immeasurably more. There's nothing greater than your love, more than we can imagine. There's nothing sweeter on this earth, more than we can imagine. Our hearts respond to who you are. It's you, oh Lord, that we adore. You are more, you are more, you're more than we can imagine. You are more, you are more, you're more than we can imagine. No eye has seen, no ear has heard what is coming, what is coming. Never-ending joy, never failing love. You are coming, you are coming. There's nothing greater than your love, more than we can imagine. There's nothing sweeter on this earth, more than we can imagine. Our hearts respond to who you are. It's you, oh Lord, that we adore. You are more, you are more, you're more than we can imagine. You are more, you are more, you're more than we can imagine. It's called Earth and Spirit. It is right to give you thanks, loving Creator. Your word is the impulse for all things to be, for space, stars, and stardust to appear, for earth to emerge from the deep, for life to be born of earth, and for humans to be born of earth and the Spirit. You chose human beings to be your servants on earth, to care for our garden home. You suffered when they desecrated the earth and its waters and lands. Your Spirit was the life impulse in all things, restoring the broken and healing the wounded, groaning in anticipation of a new creation, stirring in new life born of water and the Spirit. You chose to be born a human being, to become a part of earth, to suffer, die, and rise from the dead, to redeem humankind, to restore creation, and to reconcile all born of earth and the Spirit. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word This is the air I breathe.
This is a prayer that's called God, our Creator. God, our Creator, whose glory fills the planet, help us to discern your vibrant presence among us and our kin in creation. Help us to empathize with your creatures who are suffering and to serve you as agents for healing your creation. In the name of Christ, who reconciles and restores all things in creation, amen. So today we kind of take that prayer, the words of that prayer, the words that we're singing with these songs, to just help us to be mindful of the earth and the planet, creation, the people, and the beauty that surrounds us. And so with that in mind, we're going to sing one more song with Liz and just make this kind of the prayer that kind of seals up our worship time together. But I would invite you to continue singing and make these words a part of your prayer.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. It's your your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, you only. Great are you, Lord.
God of lavish fecundity, you overflow into nature in every moment, offering your gifts of beauty and nourishment. Nurture me with sacred rhythms of light and dark, rise and fall, fullness and emptiness, as the pulse which animates every living thing. Help me to remember my own wildness, so that I come to know every bird, fish, insect, and animal as kin, and to live in ways that renew and sustain Earth and all her systems. Renew my vision so that I see beyond the barriers I have constructed. Kindle my longing to join the great song of the sea, the trees, the mountains, and flowers are already singing, and to live as a member of the great community of creation.
Genesis 1:1 says this. First, this. God created the heavens and the earth, all you see and all you don't see. Earth was a soup of nothingness, a bottomless emptiness, an inky blackness, and God's Spirit brooded like a bird above this watery abyss. And God spoke light, and light appeared. And God saw that the light was good and separated light from dark. And God named the light day, and he named the dark night. It was evening, it was morning, day one. And God spoke, sky in the middle of the water, separate water from water. And God made sky. And he separated the water under the sky from the water above the sky. And there it was. He named the sky the heavens, and it was evening, and it was morning, day two. And God spoke, separate. And water beneath heaven gathered into one place. Land appear, and there it was. God named the land earth. He named the pooled water ocean. And God saw that it was good. And God spoke, earth, green up, grow all varieties of seed-bearing plants, every sort of fruit-bearing tree. And there it was. And earth produced green, seed-bearing plants, all varieties, and fruit-bearing trees of all sorts. And God saw that it was good. It was evening, it was morning, day 3. God spoke, lights, come out. Shine in heaven's sky. Separate day from night. Mark seasons and days and years. Lights in heaven's skies to give light to earth. And there it was. And God made 2 big lights, the larger to take charge of the day and the smaller to be in charge of night. And he made the stars. God placed them in heavenly sky to light up earth and oversee day and night, to separate light and dark. And God saw that it was good. It was evening. It was morning. Day 4. And God spoke, swarm, oceans with fish and sea, life, birds fly through the sky over earth. And God created the huge whales and all the swarm of life in the waters, and every kind and species of flying birds. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them. Reproduce. Fill the ocean. Birds, reproduce on earth. And it was evening, and it was morning, day 5. And God spoke, earth, generate life, every sort and kind, cattle and reptiles and wild animals, all kinds. And there it was. Wild animals of all kind, of every kind. Cattle of all kind, every sort of reptile and bug. And God saw that it was good. And then God spoke, let us make human beings in our image. Make them reflecting our nature, so that they can be responsible for the fish in the sea and birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of the earth. And God created human beings. He created them God-like, reflecting God's nature. He created them male and female, and God blessed them. Prosper, reproduce, fill the earth, take charge. Be responsible for fish in the sea and birds in the air, for every living thing that moves on the face of earth. Then God said, I've given you every sort of seed-bearing plant on earth, and every kind of fruit-bearing tree, given them to you for food. To all animals and birds, everything that moves and breathes, I give whatever grows out of the ground for food. And there it was. God looked over everything God had made. It was so good, so very good. It was evening, it was morning, day 6. The account or story of creation is a gorgeous opening to the Jewish scriptures, or what we Christians often refer to as the Old Testament. I truly love the way that Eugene Peterson translates the Hebrew in this passage that I just read from the Message version of the Bible. This passage holds so much truth for us. First, it shows us and it speaks to us that there is order and intention to the world. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but if you were to take days 1, 2, and 3, days 4, 5, and 6, day 1 corresponds to day 4. Day 2 corresponds to day 5, and day 3 corresponds to day 6. With the seventh day being an exclamation point on the whole passage, saying, it's done. It's done, and it's complete, and it's good work. In fact, it's a very good work. To a world that in this time was known to be created from chaos, or it was to be created out of disorder, and you could not rely on intention, could not rely on order, This spoke to the ancient peoples that there is a God who is in charge. There's an intention to the universe. There is a love that illuminates all things, sustains all things, generates all things, and you can count and trust on it. It also speaks to us that creation is dynamic, not static in its nature. If you note, God looks at every day of creation and signs off as it's good. Day 6, though, at the completion of this all, after the mentioned creation of humanity, he says, so very good. You see, for so many of us, we've been taught that the garden was perfect. But that is nowhere in the story. That is nowhere in the text. That's actually a Greek understanding superimposed upon an indigenous people, Hebrew people, that says there's no more. In other words, good is better than perfect, because good can become better, and perfect can only fall. And so we understand that not only as creation as a large, but about ourselves. We've never been created or been called to be perfect. We've been created to be good and to grow and to generate and to emerge in that goodness so that we become so good, even better. The third truth that this speaks to us is that humanity, you and I, are a part of creation, albeit with a special charge and responsibility, a special role to play in creation, but we must understand that we are a part of creation. Remember, God created human beings. He created them God-like, reflecting God's nature. God created them male and female. God blessed them, prosper, reproduce, fill the earth, take charge. And I have in my notes in bold, be responsible for fish in the sea and birds in the air, for every living thing that moves on the face of the earth. Now look, there's a lot more to this story than just the truths that I have just highlighted. But for us, this morning, I want to focus on the truth that I just spoke. And that is that we, humanity, are a part of creation, and that we, humanity, are charged with the responsibility of caring for and loving creation. The story tells us that we're made in the likeness of God. How so? Is it humanity's power? Is it our intellect and ability to reason? Is it in the fact that we, like God, are relational? See, Scott McKnight, we've looked at some of his work here at the Grove before. He's written many, many important books. Blue Parakeet being one the church went through several years ago. But he says that we're icons, E-I-K-O-N-S. In other words, to see us is to see, hopefully, in part, what God is like. And that as icons, those who bear the image or the likeness of God in us, that we're created to have loving relationships with God, self, others, and creation. Now, what I want to say to us today is that we have focused on the God, the self, and the others portion of this formula, but all too often forgotten that our very first charge was not to focus on self, It was not to focus on others, nor even to worship God. Our first charge was to take responsibility and care for creation. Now, we have, as humanity, failed in that responsibility. I have an article here. I'd be happy to make copies of it for you all, but it lists 20 major current environmental problems. We talk about the pollution of air, water, and soil. We talk about heavy metals. As a result of that, we have soil degradation and global warming and climate change. We have urbanization and urban sprawl. We have melting in our polar ice caps and ocean acidification. There's the nitrogen cycle that basically talks about this component of all life, and we're using it all up. There's public health issues in our drinking water and the way that we have spoiled our own home and habitat. And there's even this threat of genetic engineering that faces us today. We failed in our responsibility by and large. Why? Evo Morales had this to say. He says, sooner or later, we will have to recognize that the earth has rights too, to live without pollution. What mankind or humanity must know is that human beings cannot live without Mother Earth, but the planet can live and flourish without humans. Why again have we failed in our responsibility to care for creation? Well, what I want to posit to you today, and this is the first of a couple of talks we're going to give on earth care this month, but what I want to start out with is we have failed in our responsibility to care for creation because we've forgotten that we are creatures, and instead we've acted as though we are the creator. Harold Bell Wright wrote a book I read as a little kid called The Shepherd of the Hills. Love that book. And in that book he says that it's no wonder we have lost our faith in God when we have surrounded ourselves with the work of our own hands. I felt that when I lived in New York City at times. But I drive to Walgreens every day and see these Smokies. I can't tell you, I'm on the phone with people, I'm with Nicole, and I say, I'm so thankful that we live here. This is the beauty that we get to see that is not made from our own hands. We've forgotten that we are creatures. My friend and colleague Ben Cutler, who I hope may be able to share with us later, writes a lot of poetry. He teaches English at the high school. He's been great with Willy Wonka this particular play season. He's just a good dude. And he's from here. And he writes a lot of poetry about nature. He's got a book, Geese Who Would Be Gods. It's pretty awesome. But he captures the idea of how we think we are above creation in this following poem that I want to share with you. It's called The Boy Who Hunts. The boy who hunts out of season tells me the fatty meat behind a deer's eye is eaten raw and right after the kill. It tastes like dough, and he laughs when he says it. The dough tastes like dough. I believe him. Believe his tongue knows the salty and shapeless taste of uncooked bread, and his young trigger-callous fingers in the slick release of a dead eye pried from a still warm socket that would have held it well. To see another waking, spring through summer's green, abundance in the treacherous fall. The boy who hunts out of season tells me he leaves the body where it lies to bloat like a yeasted loaf. And I believe him. Believe he knows nothing of the full and warm flavor of patience. Nothing of any season save his own hard and violent weather. nothing of living, gentle eyes, and the sweetness that rises behind them. That phrase has rolled around in my head. Too often, we who live as though we're in control of all things because we have the intelligence and the capacity to grow, to conquer, to subdue nature, which is what often even our Christian religious tendencies and instructors will tell us. But that's not the way it should be. We should be living in harmony with creation. I'm not saying that we don't hunt. I'm not saying that we don't take from the earth, but we live according to its seasons, according to its natural rhythms, and not like this young man featured in this poem who knows nothing of full and warm flavor of patience, nothing of any season save his own. John Paul II said this: "The earth will not continue to offer its harvest except with faithful stewardship." And stewardship, just as an aside, is when you have been given something that is not yours in trust to care for. We cannot say that we love the land, John Paul II goes on, and then take steps to destroy it for use by future generations. So today, we ask the question of ourselves, what is our first step in reclaiming our responsibility to the earth, to creation? How can you and I make a difference in the monumental task of making the earth sustainable? Again, I don't know if you've realized this, but up until 100 or so years ago, it took all of humanity's history, as far as we can tell, to reach 1 billion people. And in that century or so, we've now gone from 1 billion to over 7 billion. Whether or not you think that there are cycles to Earth's climate and weather and that this is natural or not, we didn't have oceans of plastic before humanity started our industrial revolution. We didn't have the threat of a nuclear arsenal hanging over our planet and all of our kind and all creatures, all our kin. But we do now. So with all of these things facing us, how can you and I make any difference at all? I want to argue today that what we can do is we can begin anew learning to love creation again. The first step in this is to look at it, to become aware of the earth around us, to put ourselves in natural places, to go to the rivers and the streams where Dave frequents with his fly fishing, and hear that bubbling, to hear the sound of water rushing over rocks. It's to hike and climb in our forests. It's to drive and find ourselves and sit in nature so that we can learn from it by looking at it. And that's the second point. Second point is to learn from it. See, the earth on its own is sustaining. The earth left to its own devices has healing properties. We can learn from the way that the earth has systems that work together. Nicole shared with me this morning a Facebook post. So she tagged me, and I don't know what you did, but I read it. And it's a gentleman who had created a sphere and set some plants in it and then sealed it. And then came back a couple of sometime later and sealed it again. And from what I understand, that living environment, that plant within that large glass, about this large, has lived for over 60 years. Because it grows, and then it falls, and the soil absorbs the nutrients, brings it back up. It's a beautiful system. It's sustainable. So we can look at creation, we can fall in love with it again, and then we can learn from it. And we can learn from it, and then we have to love it. Thomas Merton is one of my favorite guys. He's a monk who's passed away, author of many, many books. But he once said there's only one way to overcome sin. Any sin. Every sin. And that's simply by loving more. The great theologian, Peter Parker, once said, with great power comes great responsibility. And whether it's for the best of this planet or not, we humans are in charge of it. We have forced our will on it over and over again. So how do we start? My challenge for you today and this week is to get out in nature. And maybe that's sitting on your porch and watching hummingbirds like Debbie. Or maybe that's hiking deep into the woods like Liz. Or maybe that's just simply parking at Deep Creek for 15 minutes like Nicole. But look at nature. Learn from the earth that God has entrusted us to and entrusted to us. Learn harmony and balance. You know, it's an interesting thing when you and I, when we as a people understand that we are a part of creation. We are not, in fact, the creator. We live in what the Hebrew people called shalom. We live in what my doctoral professor, a Cherokee young man, Randy Woodley, says we live in the harmony way. That's our goal. And it's a pretty simple place to start. But it's my challenge to us today. It's spring. Get outside. Load up on your Claritin and your Zyrtec. Wear a mask if you need to. But get out in nature. And look at it. And learn from it. And love it. I want to close today with a version of the Lord's Prayer. Now, this is from the original Aramaic, not Aromatic, might be Aromatic, but the original Aramaic. And it's by Neil Douglas Klotz, and he wrote a book called Prayers of the Cosmos. So if you'll stand with your feet with me. I know. Wait, doesn't Matt have another 45 minutes? Nope, I do not. Hear this prayer and join in your hearts with me. O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us. Make it useful. Create your reign of unity now through our fiery hearts and willing hands. Help us love beyond our ideals and sprout acts of compassion for all creatures. Animate the earth within us. We then feel the wisdom underneath supporting all. Untangle the knots within so that we can mend our heart's simple ties to each other. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back from our true purpose. Out of you, the astonishing fire, returning light and sound to the cosmos. Amen. Grove, go in love on each other and this planet. See you soon.